Well, you may be used to partying like it's 1776 on your 4th of July weekend. In Minnesota, we partied like it was 2014. Hello and welcome to the Twinkie Town Tavern, where the beer is cold, the Twins talk is hot, and the stools are always open. I'm your host, Josh Kolojeski, inviting you to grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's talk about the Twins earning a rare series win in the Big Apple. Here's how it happened. A familiar script for Game 1 of the Twins series against the Yankees. The Twins get on the board first, in the first, thanks to a Cody Clemens solo shot, but the New York Yankees immediately respond. This time it's Trent Grisham preparing our hearts to be broken with a leadoff blast off of Mike Paredes. After some rain, our least favorite film continues as expected. New York takes a short lead in the bottom of the third, this time courtesy of a 2-run Ben Rice homer, and they tease Minnesota by letting them get one back in the fourth. However, as always, the Yankees break through against the Twins bullpen with 2 insurance runs in the 7th. The Twins blow a bases-loaded opportunity in the 8th, and the Yankees take Game 1 5-2. Then on Saturday, things were looking much better for Minnesota until they weren't. Byron Buxton has an RBI double and is brought in on a Cody Clemens 2-run bomb in the first. Then Luke Keeschel and Alex Jackson go back-to-back in the second. Trevor Larnach hits a solo shot off of a lefty in the 4th inning. Minnesota with a comfortable 6-0 lead at that point. Zebby Matthews is rolling. We can probably turn this one off and get the grill going early for the 4th, but not so fast. Out of nowhere, the Yankees begin to get more hits off of Zebby Matthews. It starts off quietly with a Jason Dominguez homer in the 4th, and then Max Schumann hits a 2-run shot in the 5th. Matthews then loses his control, walks the bases loaded before exiting with an injury, and Cody Bellinger drives in another run off of Travis Adams. The Yankees cut the lead to just 2 runs by making it 6-4, and then the familiar script begins to play out once again. When the Yankees load the bases in the bottom of the 6th against Taylor Rogers, surely the Bronx Bombers are going to blow it open again, and ruin our Independence Day. Well, not today, or not Saturday. In that case, Travis Adams, he strikes out Ahmed Rosario, and Taylor Rogers gets Paul Goldschmidt to fly out to end the inning. Minnesota blows it open from there. Josh Bell with a leadoff home run in the very next inning. Then in the 8th, a Buxton sacrifice fly and a Clemens RBI single set the stage for Josh Bell's second bomb of the day, and the Twins take Game 2 11-4. Finally, Game 3 on Sunday pits Joe Ryan against Ryan Weathers, and it was our Ryan that was in cruise control early. First pitch strikes all day, and never seriously letting the Yankees make this a game. Josh Bell has another big day, an RBI single in the first, barely missing a home run to the short porch, and the Twins add to their lead with Brooks Lee driving in Royce Lewis with a single in the 4th. Now, this is a team that has been so driven by its ability to have outstanding situational hitting, so how about Royce Lewis coming up big with 2 outs and the bases loaded in the 5th? That's no problem for Royce, who drives in 2 with a single. Austin Martin and Cody Clemens both drive in runs in the 6th. Joe Ryan tosses 7 scoreless innings, striking out 9 and allowing just 3 hits and 1 run. Yoendris Gomez gives up a meaningless run in the 9th, and the Twins hang on for the 6-1 win. Minnesota takes 2 of 3 from the Yankees, and they improve to 44 and 47. They're in 3rd place in the AL Central, just 4 games behind first place Chicago, and they're a game and a half behind the Rangers for the final AL wildcard spot. Let's get into it. Well, where were you in May/June of 2014? For me, I was in Lame Deer, Montana, preparing to work my first summer job with a company called YouthWorks after my sophomore year of college. I was a program coordinator there, helped run their evening programming, and helped a bunch of youth groups and church groups that went in to Montana for all of this, all for a week-long mission trip and to get to know the community. So that's what I was doing. I was preparing the site in Lame Deer, Montana for that on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. However, that was 12 years ago. I am now 10 years out of college. I have watched another 12 seasons of Minnesota Twins baseball, and apparently, since that time, I have not seen the Minnesota Twins win a series in the Bronx. That was the last time your Minnesota Twins were able to beat the Yankees at Yankee Stadium in at least 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 games. We know how bad it's been. In the broadcast at the new Yankee Stadium, the play-by-play announcers saying that the Twins entering this series were 14-47. They are now 16-48 against New York in New York. That's still only a .250 win percentage, but it did feel good to get that win and to get 2 wins in a series that I had circled as one of the tougher ones the rest of the way. So if you tell me that the Minnesota Twins can take 2 out of 4, or 2 out of 6 rather, go 2-4 combined against the Dodgers and the Yankees, a pair of series over the last couple of weeks that I would have, knock on wood, expected to hopefully win one, not even expected, but hoped to get one of those wins. If you had told me that we would win 2 out of those 6 games, I would think that the Twins were in a pretty good place heading towards the All-Star break. And part of that is because, as we've talked about, there are not a lot of super difficult series coming up for Minnesota throughout the rest of the season. So pitting yourselves just 1.5 games back behind Texas right now for the wild card, and just 4 games behind the White Sox for first place in the AL Central, with the schedule that Minnesota has the rest of the way. And granted, a lot of those teams can change come the trade deadline, and the Twins can certainly change if injury start to bite a little bit more. But as things look right now, the teams that we are facing the rest of the way, not many of them are ones that give me too much of a scare. And the Yankees were one of them that gave me a scare because of what has happened in the Twins' past against New York, and especially since 2002, when they have gone from bad to abysmal anytime they've played against the New York Yankees. And if there is a time, 20 years in the future, probably be 50 years in the future, if we were to finally tie our all-time non-Washington Senators franchise head-to-head series against the New York Yankees, 50 years down the road, and we wanted to point back to one moment where we started to change the tides against the New York Yankees in our fortunes against them when we play them, we would go back and, I think, point to the 6th and 7th inning in Game 2 on the 4th of July. Because, much like Game 1, we have seen that script play out, we have also seen the script that was playing out in Game 2 play out and end up favoring the Yankees when all is said and done. And it seemed like it was going that direction once again. I'm thinking about 2002, when Jason Giambi hits a walk-off grand slam with Minnesota up by 3 in the bottom of the 14th, 15th inning. I'm thinking 2004 in the ALDS Game 4, when the Twins have a lead, look like they're going to bring it back to New York for a Game 5, where anything can happen, and Juan Rincon blows it by giving up 4 runs to tie the game in the 8th, and a Ruben Sierra 3-run home run. I'm thinking about 2009, when the Twins have a lead late in the game against the Yankees, and Joe Nathan, one of the best closers in all of Major League Baseball at that point, gives up walk-off home runs, or sets the stage for a walk-off home run to be had, I should say, later on in the game. He blows a save. The 2017 game, where the Twins got out to a nice lead at Yankee Stadium in the playoffs, typically a comfortable lead. It was 3-0 with Brian Dozier and Eddie Rosario, both hitting home runs in the first inning of that wild card game, getting Luis Severino out of the game after less than an inning, and you're turning it over to your ace, Irvin Santana. And we saw that turn into another playoff loss when all was said and done. And then, of course, the 2019 blow-ups in the bullpen in Game 1 of that ALDS, where Tyler Duffy, Cody Stashik, Kyle Gibson, really nobody was able to get anybody out when the Twins, I think they had 3 or 4 home runs in that game, but they were all solo shots. Polanco, Cruz, Miguel Sano, all going deep, and they lost that game and were swept by the Yankees in that series. So we have seen big leads evaporate. We have seen the Twins bullpen blow games late and get absolutely torn to pieces by this Yankees lineup in the 21st century. Time and time again, it has played out like that. But on Saturday, the Twins, this version of the Twins, Derek Shelton's Twins, began to write a new story. And that was, first, Travis Adams helping himself kind of escape the jam that he created by loading the bases with just one person out, his team only up by 2. He strikes out the first player, and then the Twins go to Taylor Rogers. They trust him to get the last out. The veteran lefty, the guy who has probably been here among the longest, or his tenure, his first time as a Minnesota Twin stretches back longer than most players on this team. Obviously, he had a long stint in between playing for a cavalcade of other teams as well. But Taylor Rogers comes in and is able to get Paul Goldschmidt to fly out to end the inning. And I think a Twins team from 2002 to 2025, more often than not, allows a 3-run double or a Goldschmidt grand slam, and our 4th of Julys are ruined. And this is just one regular season game. This does not have the magnitude of a playoff game, but it didn't really matter what sort of game it was against the Yankees from 2002 to 2025. It always seemed like that magic was able to come up and bite the Twins in the butt. But not on Saturday. The fireworks went the other direction for once, and you saw the Twins grab hold of the momentum and not look back. As soon as Taylor Rogers shuts down that inning, leaves the bases loaded with the Yankees not scoring any runs, this is still going to be a tenuous game through the final 3 innings. It's still just a 2-run lead, and then Josh Bell hits a solo home run on one of the very first pitches of the next inning. He's leading off the inning, and he helps Minnesota fully switch that momentum, both pitching and hitting, and hopefully this is the start of something, of if not some dominance or even level play against the Yankees through the rest of our 2 franchise histories or futures, I should say, then at least some non-complete one-sided domination moving forward between these 2 teams. Hopefully that is the true turning point, and this Minnesota Twins team that has struggled specifically so much against the New York Yankees in the 21st century can start to turn the tide on that just a little bit. And if they do, that is the symbolic moment that we can point to when Taylor Rogers escaped the bases-loaded jam and Josh Bell immediately followed up with a solo home run to begin the next inning. That is something that has happened so often in the opposite direction to the Twins, where they would load the bases and have a chance to tie or take the lead in the game, and they would get out a couple of times. In that game where Joe Nathan blew the save in 2009, Joe Mauer was robbed of a double, probably would have scored, but the Twins loaded the bases that inning with 1 out. Didn't score. Yankees capitalize on it, get the walk-off, and take a 2-0 lead in that 2009 ALDS. That has been the script in prior years, but the Twins flip it this time. This time they are the ones that get out of the bases loaded jam, and they are the ones that start to pound the Yankees bullpen and blow this game away. That was fun to watch. That was fun to finally see flip. And we've had moments like these against the Yankees, I should say. Jason Kubel's grand slam against Mariano Rivera in 2010 being one of them, where it seemed like at that point, okay, we are turning the tide. That was going to be the turning point, and then, obviously, it wasn't. So, this very well could just be a rare, bright spot in what will otherwise be a continued one-sided domination of the New York Yankees against the Minnesota Twins, but at least for this moment, at least for this weekend, we are able to hold on to this, and that is the Twins flipping the script on a team that has dominated them and battered them and belted them and spanked them for so long. They were able to do it here on that Saturday. And then, cherry on the cake is to get that win 6-1 on Sunday as well. takeaway from this series is just how legit this Minnesota Twins offense. And obviously, we weren't playing the New York Yankees at full force because Aaron Judge has been out since late May. And he is obviously a key cog. But we were playing some of the Yankees coming back off of injury, like Trent Grisham, and he hits a home run in his first at-bat off of the injured list. And we're still, they don't have Giancarlo Stanton out there, but they still have Jazz Chisholm for most of that series, who was a 30-30 guy a year ago. They still have Ben Rice, who has been one of the best hitters in the big leagues this season, even with Aaron Judge sharing the same lineup as him. They have been on a race for the best OPS in Major League Baseball or in the American League between those two. Ben Rice has been nearly every bit as good as Aaron Judge, and he has been healthy. But even so, this Twins offense scores more runs than the New York Yankees this season. The Twins have the 6th best offense in terms of runs scored in Major League Baseball and the 1st best in the American League. The Twins, since June, where their offense really started to hit its stride, have been 1st in the American League in weighted on base average, expected weighted on base average, and batting average, and they're 2nd in the American League in expected batting average. Again, that's since the start of June. And basically what those numbers are, you know what batting average is. Expected batting average is based on the quality of the contact and the location of where you are putting balls into play, what a typical expected batting average would be. So the Twins being 1st in the American League in batting average and 2nd in expected batting average, showing that this is not just this Twins team getting a lot of luck. They are hitting about as well as they should be given the contact that they are putting on balls. And then weighted on base average is the MLB Baseball Savant trying to kind of get an all-encompassing, more adjusted OPS type stat and putting that together. That is what weighted on base average is. It is their attempt to have an all-encompassing offensive stat. So if you are number 1 in weighted on base average, you are probably one of the best offenses in the league. And the Twins are both number 1 since June in weighted on base average in the American League and expected weighted on base average. Again, showing that they are not just lucking into some of these base hits. They are putting together sustainable hard contact during this stretch, which has now lasted about 40% of their season since the beginning of June. So to me, that shows us that the offense is actually the powerhouse that it has looked to be as of late. And especially since, that Rangers series and that whole road trip where they were just completely dominant at the plate. This shows me that this Twins offense is not going to regress as catastrophically as I think we believed it could when their hot streak kind of got started. Or even early on in the year when they had that big couple of games against like Garrett Crochet and against the Detroit Tigers, and then the bats went silent for a good stretch. I think this is showing us that this sort of contact, this sort of offensive renaissance for your Twins is sustainable throughout the rest of this 2026 season. Maybe not to the levels that it's currently at since June, but at least to the 1st in the American League in runs levels that we've seen throughout the course of the season. That is a season-long stat. And I just want to, once again, pat some guys in the back for their offensive prowess since the beginning of June. Because there are guys that have been consistently hitting, and all of these guys have, since June, the start of June, the first day of June, a 790 on-base plus slugging percentage, OPS, or higher. And 790, 800 is when you start to get into, okay, this guy could and should be an all-star. So that means in this list of players that I'm going to go down since June 1st, the Twins have 7 all-star level players in their lineup since June 1st, because all of these guys are at 790 OPS or higher in that time. Josh Bell is at a 970 OPS. So that's when you add the on-base and slugging percentage. So, numbers of really great on-base percentage and really good slugging percentage. 400 for on-base, 500 for slugging. Those are elite tier numbers in both of those categories. That gives you a 900 OPS when you add both of those numbers together. Josh Bell since June 1st, 970 OPS. Byron Buxton since June 1st, 931 OPS. Victor Caratini, this one surprised me the most because he is the best OPS hitter in this Twins lineup since June 1st with a 1.021 OPS. He has been hitting not only at a great level, but at a level that is higher than that of what Ryan Jeffers was hitting when he was injured. He has been an offensive revelation over the last month and change. Cody Clemens, .909 OPS since June 1st. Trevor Larnach, .981, second on the team in this span. And he has the advantage of being platooned and only really going up against right-handed pitchers, but he got a home run off of left-hander Tim Hill in this weekend series. So that counts for at least something. And again, it's a 981 OPS since June 1st. Royce Lewis, who I was about to just bury and never think of as a Minnesota Twin again, kind of like Matt Wallner, he has come up and proven himself with a 790 OPS since June 1st. And Alex Jackson, the backup catcher to Victor Caratini, in a more limited sample size because he's playing basically only once out of every 3 or 4 days, still an 818 OPS since June 1st. So those are 7 hitters in this Twins lineup that are bringing you, that we're not going to confuse ourselves and delude ourselves into thinking that these are all-star level players. But right now, since June 1st, they've put together all-star level production. And that is now a sustained amount of time that they have put up that all-star production. And it just makes me really excited for the future of this Twins team and for the rest of this season. It makes me think that the Twins have a much better chance of being legitimate buyers at the trade deadline. Not just not selling off some of their parts, but going in and investing in starting pitching and investing in the bullpen because they have the pieces in their farm system. Obviously, you don't want to trade the top tier guys, but the depth that they have throughout the system gives them the ability, the toolbox, to try and do that. And then not only that, but also when some of these big-time prospects come up to the big leagues, you want them to hit right away, and they will hopefully contribute to that lineup. Alan Rodin, Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Gabriel Gonzalez, all of those guys. At some point, I think, unless all of these players continue to hit at the rate that they are hitting, I think all of those guys are going to see some good time in the lineup in the latter half of this season. And that's been important because the pitching, especially recently, has not been up to snuff over that same amount of time. The Twins have given up the second most runs in the American League all season long. So while their hitting is skyrocketing towards the top of Major League Baseball, their pitching, which was expected to be one of their strengths and was a strength early on, but because of injuries and just some lower than expected performances on a whole, like by Connor Prelip and Sebby Matthews, it is continuing to tumble towards the bottom of Major League Baseball, except for our guy, Joe Ryan. This is one of the best starts that he's had all year in that rubber match against the Yankees on Sunday. He is pitching in Yankee Stadium, a place where Twins pitchers have long trembled despite their talent level. I guess Johan Santana, you could say, is the only one that didn't really ever struggle at Yankee Stadium. But now you can, and I guess there was also a time where Scott Baker was randomly really good at Yankee Stadium that spanned like 3 or 4 starts. But now you can add Joe Ryan to that list of pitchers that live up to the moment, that live up to this mythical realm of baseball immortality, take it by the horns, and just dominate a lineup filled with elite Major League hitters. Again, less so than they typically have because of some injuries, but still a very good Major League lineup. Second in the American League in runs to your Minnesota Twins. And he puts together one of his best starts of the season where he is throwing first pitch strike after first pitch strike, and he is doing what he wants with the baseball, which is establish the fastball, continue to use that fastball to make them think that that fastball is coming, still using it at a 50% rate, throw that fastball for strikes, and then let the bottom drop off with your sweeper or with your sinker or with your knuckle curve. 4 knuckle curves were swung at by New York hitters, and 2 were fouled off and 2 were swung on and missed. So none of them were put into play, and 2 of them were whiffs. That's a 50% whiff rate, and they were all, strikes. They were all advantageous in the pitching in the count for Joe Ryan, because either they were swing and miss strikeout, swing and miss first strike, swing and miss second strike, or a foul ball that, again, is either a strike or keeps the at-bat going and doesn't hurt you as a ball, or a pitch outside of the zone, or something put into play that could be potentially hit hard. And Joe Ryan, just dominant all season long, had that one injury scare, and other than that, has always had the peripheral numbers, but now the results-based surface level numbers are starting to catch up with those peripheral numbers. Because there's a time in April where the ERA was like in the mid-4s, high 4s, but everything else said, okay, this is going to... He's still pitching like an ace, like a number 1 pitcher. It's just that he's run into some oddly hard contact and a little bit of bad luck. No longer. The peripheral numbers and the result numbers are starting to match each other. And one final takeaway from this series in particular is I don't see the purpose of Kyler Fedko on the Minnesota Twins anymore. And it kind of reminds me of like hitters in the past, like Daniel Polka, that have had really good AAA seasons and, yes, deserve to get a stint at Major League Baseball, but I think that stint has worn out here for Kyler Fedko. 3 strikeouts as he had to fill in for Byron Buxton, who got injured in the first inning of this game. He has 4 at-bats, does Fedko, 3 strikeouts, no hits, still has not registered his first Major League hit. He has 17 plate appearances. He's 0 for 14 at the plate. 7 of that 0 for 14 is strikeouts. He is having an awful time hitting, and I think he has shown himself not to be a capable Major League hitter. It is time to send Kyler Fedko down. He's being used sparingly, if used at all, and that can open up some room for someone who actually has a future in this Minnesota Twins organization, like Alan Roden, or like even Matt Wallner, bringing him up if that is what you want to do. I would rather have Matt Wallner, getting his swing into a couple of balls to put over the fence rather than Kyler Fedko, who can't hit the broadside of a barn right now and might not ever at this Major League level. So give me Matt Wallner, give me Alan Roden, give me Walker Jenkins, give me anything other than the black hole at the plate that is Kyler Fedko. Some injury notes from this past weekend. Some bad news, some good news. It's mostly good news, but one piece of bad news is that we still don't have an updated timetable for Byron Buxton. He left the game on Sunday after making his first appearance back in the lineup on Saturday after missing a couple of games. And on Sunday, he gets on base in his first at-bat, tries to steal second, finally gets caught stealing on just a really fluky play where the catcher Austin Wells threw it kind of wide of the bag, but it was towards the first base side, and Anthony Volpe was able to get the ball and tag one of Byron Buxton's legs that was flying in the air just before his hand reached second base. So it was kind of a fluky caught stealing, but in any case, it was the first time that Byron Buxton has been caught stealing, I guess, since 2024. And that was one of my predictions in the preseason perfect game, 27 up, 27 down predictions. One of those 27 was that Byron Buxton would at some point this season get caught stealing. That is at least one of the 27 that we have correct. I'm not sure if there are going to be too many others that are going to be correct, but for now, one of 27, we will hang our hat on that. On that caught stealing, though, Byron Buxton re-aggravated a hip impingement, and they didn't have any further details on a recovery timeline for that. He had that hip impingement earlier in the year and hasn't been on the injured list at all this season, so hopefully that continues to be the case. It is something that keeps him out for a little bit, but not too long, and then he can be right back into the Twins lineup and keep marching towards his second 30 home run season and get an outside chance at hitting 45 to 50 home runs this year, which is what he has been on pace for at certain times this season. But other than that, it's been mostly good news. Zebby Matthews did leave Saturday's game with a right foot laceration. Derek Shelton, after the game, said that he doesn't expect Matthews to miss his next start, so he should be right back on schedule, and we shouldn't have to call up anyone from AAA to make a spot start for him. And if we do, you also have the buffer of the All-Star break afterwards, so it probably would only be one start if worst comes to worst right there. I guess if worst comes to worst, that could be, the end of the world. But in relative to the Zebby Matthews situation, the worst that could happen is within the realistic realm of expectations for Matthews is that he misses one start, it seems. And if that happens, he gets a longer time to recover because of that All-Star break. Ryan Jeffers is in the middle of his rehab assignment. He should be back, if not this week, then after the All-Star break for sure, as St. Paul will start a road series this upcoming week. So he's at home. They might as well just taxi him over to Target Field and let him get back into the batter's box at Target Field. But he has played 3 games at St. Paul over the weekend, 2 of them as a designated hitter, 1 as a catcher, and he went 5 of 11, 1 double, 1 home run, and an RBI. So showing that his hitting at a level that is just a tier below the major league level is still pretty good. And that is looking like he will be back with the big league club. One thing that would be interesting is even if the Minnesota Twins are planning on being buyers, if they wanted to be proactive, I would not be totally opposed to the idea of trading away Ryan Jeffers. You would have to have faith that Victor Caratini's sudden offensive eruption can be, if not sustainable, at least good, if not at the level that it is currently throughout the rest of the season. Because Alex Jackson has been a good backup, and you could be dealing with some surplus value at your catching position throughout the rest of the season. And if the plans are not to extend Ryan Jeffers after this year because he might warrant a pretty big contract, again, I would extend him. That would be step number 1, is just extend him, and then you don't have to bite a bullet at any point of the rest of the season. But if the plan is, if it's been talked about with ownership and the plan has been, we're not going to be able to meet whatever price Ryan Jeffers asks for on the open market this year, then the next best thing would be to get some value from him. And yes, maybe if Victor Caratini and Alex Jackson were not up to snuff so far this season, then I would say certainly not. Do not trade him. We are in the middle of a playoff race. Keep him here. But if you believe that the offense can continue to perform and Caratini can continue to be a plus at the plate, and that Alex Jackson is good enough to be a backup throughout the rest of the season, if you have that surplus value at catcher, then you can turn some of that surplus value into a wider toolbox for future seasons. Or for this year to, trade Ryan Jeffers, get prospects, and use those prospects to get a starting pitcher. I am not opposed to the idea now of trading Ryan Jeffers if there is a hardcore belief among ownership and the front office that they will not be able to match his price in free agency. If they think that they can, then keep him around by all means. But if we are going into this free agency already writing Ryan Jeffers off of the 2027 roster, then I think because Caratini has been so good and because Alex Jackson has been so good, trading Ryan Jeffers could be a good idea for the right deal. All right, and then Bailey Ober also making his second rehab start over this weekend. It looks like he could be coming back again, if not this week, then after the All-Star break, and send Mike Paredes down to the bullpen, which should help things out just a little bit. Hopefully that is the case, but he goes 5, gives up 4 runs, does get the win on Saturday, 5 strikeouts, no walks, and 6 hits. So, basically what you'd expect from Bailey Ober, not eye-popping numbers, but he's throwing strikes, and if he can do that, that means he's typically in command of his pitches and is capable to be a number 4, number 5 starter at the major league level when he has been in command of those pitches, and sometimes has put up even better numbers when he has been in complete command of all of those pitches, which it looks like he is, at least during his second AAA rehab start. So maybe one more start for him at St. Paul, and then back up after the All-Star break, which would get us into that churn of a bullpen, because I've talked about time and time again how I like how Mike Paredes' stuff has the potential to play in the Twins bullpen if he were to be placed there and not just sent right back down to AAA. And we've been talking about the great bullpen churn that the Twins have been doing, which is not the ideal way to build a bullpen, but is the way that they have chosen to build their bullpen in 2026, which is just continue to bring guys in and bring guys out. And whichever guys can be effective, you stay, and then that's less to churn through the rest of the season. Like Yoenders Gomez, you can stay. Justin Topa, you got to go. Justin Lawrence, you got to go. Mike Paredes, we'll give you a shot, and let's see if you can stay long-term in this Minnesota Twins bullpen throughout the rest of the 2026 season once Bailey Ober is able to come back, which, again, we hope would be after the All-Star break as soon as then. And that just gives the rest of your pitching rotation that much more depth. In speaking of the big churn for the bullpen, the Minnesota Twins have added a pitcher to their bullpen. His name is Woo-Suk Go, who comes over from the Detroit Tigers system. He had played in the Korean Baseball League for the LG Twins out there for most of the last few seasons up until he came to Major League Baseball in 2024. He has not yet reached the Major League level, but he had a stipulation in his contract, I believe, with the Tigers that said he needed to be up at this point or be sent somewhere where he would be up. And now the Twins, I believe, are also beholden to that same clause that they would need to use him at the major league level, barring an injury of some sort, or bring him off of their 40-man roster and release him and give him a shot to be on the active roster somewhere else. So it looks like the Twins are bringing him in to put him on the active roster right away. His AAA and AA numbers this year have been really good. He has a 1.96 ERA in 27 appearances. That's 41 innings of work, 54 strikeouts, and 13 walks. Has a good fastball, not an overpowering fastball for a reliever, but it's 94-95. Has a splitter, has a couple of other breaking pitches that go alongside that, but the splitter is the plus out pitch for him. And we'll see. I mean, the Twins have worked wonders with splitter pitchers so far this season. I think they've made Eric Orsi look as capable as you could ever expect Eric Orsi to be as a starting pitcher. But that will be another one of these flyers that the Twins give a chance to see if he can stick it in the Twins bullpen throughout the rest of this season as the great bullpen churn continues. Again, that is Woo-Suk Go. And hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that. Finally, great news over the weekend as the Twins now have 2 players on the All-Star team. I thought maybe it would just be Byron Buxton. I thought maybe people would look at the surface level numbers of Joe Ryan at a 3.61 ERA before this start at Yankee Stadium and say, okay, well, Joe Ryan can't be part of that. There's other guys that could be more deserving from surface level ERAs, but we here in Minnesota know that Joe Ryan is certainly deserving, and he was named as one of 2 Twins All-Stars. Byron Buxton voted in by the fans, Joe Ryan chosen by his fellow players and other coaches and managers throughout Major League Baseball. So the Twins will have 2 All-Stars for the second year in a row, and they will be the same 2 All-Stars as they were last year in Byron Buxton and Joe Ryan. So congratulations to both of those guys. Hopefully Buxton's injury again is minor and he will be able to make the start in center field in just a couple of weeks. Because because he is certainly deserving of his third career All-Star game, and Joe Ryan deserving of his second career All-Star game. Up next for your Minnesota Twins, they return home to begin a 3-game series against the Cleveland Guardians. It'll be a 6-game homestand before we head into the All-Star break next weekend, where we'll have the draft, home run derby, All-Star game, all of that stuff, and do all of the stuff that podcasts do once you hit the All-Star break and there's a little bit less baseball to talk about. So mid-season awards, mid-season grades, trade deadline previews, all of that fun stuff coming up that week. We'll be back here tomorrow with a preview of the Twins series against the Cleveland Guardians, who they can catch in the standings with a sweep, and that is going to be your last call for Twins Talk tonight. Thanks for pulling up a stool and joining the conversation at the Twinkie Town Tavern. I'm Josh Kolojeski, and we'll see you here back after the next one. Go Twins!